They say pain births power, but what happens when that power is cursed? Long before Kaya ever knew his name, Seong was a lover, a protector, until the day vengeance opened a door that could never be closed. And through that door came 3 watchers. Subscribe now and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss episode 3. Now, let the story begin. Seong was lying down, trying to find rest, but peace was something he hadn't felt in a long time. That night, he had a dream. But this dream wasn't just a dream. It was a memory, a broken piece of something long buried. In the dream, he sat on a wooden bench, surrounded by trees and candlelight. Before him, a woman danced. She wore a soft white robe. Her movements were calm and graceful. Her laughter echoed softly in the wind. He watched her like she was the only person in the world, like she was the reason the stars even existed. And even though her face wasn't clear, she looked like Kaya. Just as his heart filled with warmth, the dream shifted. The light faded. Darkness rushed in. Suddenly, he saw Fire Sword's blood. He was screaming, not in anger, but in pain, deep, soul-crushing pain. He stood above a group of people, wounded, lifeless, people he had just destroyed with his own hands. Tears streamed down his face in the dream, and he fell to his knees. He shouted at the sky, as if begging someone to answer him. And then he woke up. Seong sat up fast, sweating and breathless. The images were still fresh. Too fresh. He held his chest like he could still feel the pain. It wasn't the first time he had seen flashes of this woman, this place, this feeling, but this time it was clearer. And it scared him. "Who is she?" he whispered. "Why does her face feel like home?" He wanted answers, but the Watchers, the supernatural force he answered to, did not show themselves unless they wanted to. He couldn't just go to them. He had to wait until he was summoned. Still, he hoped. Maybe one day they would explain what this meant. Maybe they would tell him why he, of all beings, was now drawn to Kaya again. Maybe this was more than fate. Maybe it was destiny calling back what was once lost. And if it was, would Seong dare face that truth? Because the last time he let love in, it was the beginning of his fall. Kaya managed to reach Madame Yoon using the hospital phone since her own phone was still at her late parents' house. Madame Yoon had been trying to reach her all night. Hearing Kaya's voice brought her so much relief, and without wasting time, she rushed to the hospital. When she arrived and saw Kaya safe, she was deeply relieved. Kaya didn't tell her about the shooting or the mysterious man who saved her. She didn't want to sound strange or get Madame Yoon too worried, especially because of her health. But in her heart, she kept wondering who the man really was. After some time, Madame Yoon finally got a quiet moment alone with Kaya. She held her hand and expressed how much she cared for her. She begged Kaya to consider leaving the country for a while for her own safety. She had a strong feeling that something dangerous was coming. Kaya appreciated the concern, but she refused gently. She couldn't imagine walking away from everything she had worked for, her charity, her organization, and the people who depended on her. She reminded Madame Yoon that this country held her most treasured memories, especially of her late parents. Madame Yoon was touched but still worried. There was a deep fear in her heart that someone was targeting Kaya. She hugged her tightly and told her to always remember how deeply she was loved. Later, Kaya was cleared to go home. Back at home, Hyun returned with some police officers. They asked her a few questions about the attack. Kaya explained that she couldn't see the face of the man who took her because he wore a mask. But she did remember a strange tattoo on his right hand, although she couldn't describe it clearly. The police promised to follow up using nearby CCTV footage and told Kaya to stay alert and reach out if she remembered anything else. Once everything settled, Kaya sat alone quietly in her room. Her thoughts went back to the man who saved her, Seong. She had thrown away his card, thinking she'd never need it. Now she wished she could find him again. She also kept thinking about the attack. Whoever sent the killer knew where her parents once lived. That scared her. Holding a picture of her parents close, Kaya reminded herself to stay strong. She promised to be more careful, to trust less, and to keep pushing forward no matter what. Meanwhile, in a dimly lit room at the edge of the city, Dongjun was on his knees, breathing heavily. Blood stained the corner of his mouth from the wound Seong gave him. But this pain was nothing compared to what he felt now. The fear that crawled under his skin as the man in the shadows stepped closer. This man, whose face was hidden by the dark, whose voice held power, is not someone to cross. Dongjun bowed his head even lower. "I'm sorry, sir," he stammered. "I'll do better. I promise." She caught me off guard. And that stranger, he wasn't normal. He didn't even touch me. but somehow, I flew to the car. The shadowed man didn't flinch. His voice was calm, low, and dangerous. "Do you think I care about excuses?" Dongyan froze. The man took a slow step forward. "I gave you a second life, Dongjun. I erased your prison records. Gave you a clean slate when the world had already buried you." His voice dropped to a whisper that felt colder than ice. "I own you." Dongyan dared not look up. "And don't forget," the man continued, "your sweet little daughter at the orphanage. You remember her, don't you?" Dongjian's breath caught. He clenched his fists on the floor. "She's getting the best care, nice food, a warm bed, good education, all because I allow it." Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. The man leaned closer, but still, his face stayed in the shadows. "One wrong move, and I will turn her world upside down." Dongjian's voice trembled. "No, please. I'll do it. I'll take Kaya out. I swear, I won't fail again." The man straightened. "You better not." His voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "Kaya must disappear. No trace, no drama. Just gone." Dongyan bowed again, his forehead pressing to the floor. "I understand, sir. I won't disappoint you." The mysterious man didn't respond. He simply turned and disappeared into the darkness, leaving only the sound of Dongjian's shaky breathing behind. Dongjian wiped the sweat from his face. The fear in his eyes was real. This wasn't just another job. This was survival, and this time, he was ready to finish what he started. Meanwhile, Seong waited. He stood still in the dark, endless chamber. The silence around him wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. Restless energy moved in his bones. His heart, if he still had one, beat with questions. For centuries, he had buried the memory. Now it clawed at him from the inside. He wasn't supposed to remember. He wasn't supposed to feel. But the vision returned. A woman's face, soft, familiar, wrapped in sorrow, her voice like wind through old trees. And then, the horror. His own hands soaked in the blood of a village he once swore to protect. His screams swallowed by fire. Why now? Why her? Then the ground trembled. Torches lit themselves in sequence, the ancient symbols above them glowing crimson. He had been summoned. 3 shadows emerged from the far end of the chamber, the guardians of the Crimson Seal. Beings older than time, protectors of the immortal order. They stood cloaked in silence, their faces hidden behind white veils. Seong lowered his head, but this time, he didn't kneel. His voice cracked the silence. "I want to know. Why did I see her? Why now?" The guardian said nothing for a while. Then, the eldest, Yido, raised his head slightly. "You came across what was meant to be forgotten." Another, Mohon, stepped forward. "You chose to erase the past. You begged us to unchain you from the grief that nearly turned the world upside down." Yido continued, voice like thunder in a cave. "For you to serve immortality, you needed to forget. For you to hold dominion over spirits and men alike, you had to chain that memory like it never happened." "But now," said the third Narak, "the same reincarnation of that woman stirs again. And the path you fear most is opening." The air changed. The chamber spun. Light swallowed everything. And then came darkness. Seong opened his eyes, and he was no longer in the present but now saw the past. Over 400 years ago, Dalshui Mountains. Before the curse, Seong was the guardian spirit of Dalshui, a quiet village surrounded by sacred mountains and silver rivers. His duty was simple: protect the spiritual gates, maintain balance, and never interfere with human emotion. He had lived for centuries, bound to the mountain's heartbeat. The villagers worshipped him, brought offerings to the old shrines carved into the cliffs. They never saw him, but they felt his presence. Soft wind, a warm glow in the trees healed crops after a storm. He was powerful. He was eternal. But he was alone. Everything changed in the year of the blood rain, when fate carried a soul too powerful for the world to forget. Far across the ocean, in the spiritual kingdom of Uganji, a young woman named Kaya was born under a rare moon. Her skin was the color of polished earth. Her eyes held fire, and her voice could stir sleeping spirits. She was born into a bloodline of seers and spirit mothers. Her people called her Ikalo, the soul binder. At 16, Kaya was taken. The invaders came during the season of red rains, men with steel and chains, who tore through her village and took what they wanted, including the women, and burned down the village. Kaya was shackled, stripped of her name, and thrown aboard a ship bound for the Americas. But fate would not allow her destiny to end in chains. The sea rose in fury. A storm unlike anything seen before split the heavens and swallowed the ship whole. Many perished, but Kaya survived. Carried by wind and spirit, her body drifted across impossible waters until she was found, half dead, on the rocky shores near Dalshway. The villagers had never seen a woman like her. They feared her, but one person saw beyond the fear. Lady Jihua, the village shaman, claimed Kaya as a sign from the heavens. She believed the ocean had brought her a successor. Kaya recovered under Jihua's care. She learned the language, studied the rituals, adapted her own healing arts passed down in dreams. When Lady Jihua passed on during a lunar eclipse, Kaya took her place, now called Baekyeon, the White Flame. She dressed in flowing white robes, her hair braided with silver threads, her footsteps silent like a whisper through leaves. The people respected her. She healed the sick, cleansed homes of dark spirits, and spoke with the wind. But not everyone celebrated her rise. A secret group of wealthy council members, bound by ancient blood rituals and power hunger, feared her influence. She refused to bless their traditions of blood sacrifices. She condemned their use of dark charms not intended for good practices. She broke their circle of control. To these evil councils who ruled behind closed doors, she was a threat. A foreign woman, wielding power, breaking tradition, and gathering loyalty that should belong to them. And so they turned to witchcraft. They called on forbidden spirits, and they began to weave a trap. Kaya often journeyed alone into the mountains, where she felt safest, where her visions were clearer. It was on one of these journeys that she met him, Seong. At first, she thought he was a spirit animal. He appeared only in the distance. A shadow. A presence. But one day, he stepped from behind the trees, showing his real form. Tall, otherworldly. They didn't speak at first. They just knew a force was attracting them both. Over time, words became visits. Visits became shared silences. Their bond grew quietly like moss over old stone. Seong had never touched a human before. Never dared. But Kaya lit something in him he didn't understand. Her laughter echoed in his chest long after she left. Her pain made the air heavier. Her presence awakened everything he'd tried to bury. Under the blooming moon tree, where spirits gathered once a year, they shared their first kiss. One lonely night, Seong broke the ancient vow of guardianship, taking human form under the moonlight, just to lay with Kaya. It was forbidden, a sacred line no spirit was meant to cross, but in that moment, love had silenced the rules. That night, they crossed the boundary between spirit and flesh. And when he lay with her, the mountain trembled. The air changed. The guardians looked away. He had broken the law. A spirit must never fall in love and is not allowed to have intimacy with a human. But love, once born, refuses to die. And then calamity struck. It didn't take long for the council to strike. Using an ancient mirror spell passed down through dark bloodlines, they bound a demon of the underworld to their will. Their target wasn't Seong. It was Kaya. She was attacked during one of her sacred baths in the mountain spring. The water turned black. Her screams echoed, but Seong was too far. When he arrived, he found her blood staining the water, her robe torn, her eyes fading. She died in his arms, whispering, "Don't let them win. Don't lose yourself, and I pray that in my next life I will get to be with you." But he did. Seong's rage consumed him. The ancient curse, triggered by forbidden love, broke open inside him. His spirit twisted. His sorrow became fury. His power turned dark. He burned Dalshway to the ground. Not even the innocent were spared. He was no longer a guardian. He became a demon. Back in the Hall of the Guardians, Seong gasped as the vision ended. His knees buckled, but he did not fall. Narak's voice rang out. "Now you remember. Now you understand the danger." Yido stepped forward. "Love made you fall once. It can do so again." Mohoe's voice was soft but sharp. "And if history repeats, you will still lose her again." Seong said nothing, but deep inside, he felt the stir of something old. Not rage, not sorrow, but hope. And that was even more dangerous. Seong stood at his usual favorite spot, a high cliff overlooking the forest below. The sky was quiet, but his mind was full of noise. He had been summoned by the Order, and what they told him shattered something inside him. They reminded him of the rules. He was not meant to feel. He was not meant to love. His curse as a demon would remain until the end of time. It was the price he paid for breaking the sacred law in his past life. And yet, he remembered everything now. Kaya. She was the reason his heart still burned, even in this cursed form. She was the only woman who ever made him feel human again. And now, she was back in this world. Fate had brought her again. And this time, he wouldn't let her go, even if it meant losing his immortality, even if it meant defying the order. He didn't care. Seong clenched his fist. He was ready to fight, ready to end this curse, ready to love her again, no matter the cost. Some weeks later, Kaya tried to move on with her life. She went to work. She tried to smile, but nothing felt the same. The night she was attacked kept replaying in her mind. She knew someone wanted her dead, and it wasn't over yet. She avoided crowds, took different roads. She became careful with everything, but nothing prepared her for what was coming next. Dongjun was running out of time. His daughter's life was on the line, and the warning from his mystery boss still rang in his ears. If he failed to complete the task, the consequences would fall on his beloved daughter. He couldn't allow that to happen, so he began tracking Kaya's every move, her meetings, her locations, her patterns. He waited patiently for the right moment, and finally, it came. Kaya and her personal assistant had just stepped out of a quiet private building after a long meeting with foreign investors. The lot was nearly empty, the air still. They laughed softly as they walked toward their parked car. Then, a motorbike appeared. At first, it moved slowly, unthreatening, unnoticed. But as it drew closer, the rider accelerated. He was dressed in black, face hidden beneath a dark helmet. In one swift movement, he pulled out a small plastic container from the bike's side. The moment was sharp and fast. He flung the contents toward Kaya. Her PA screamed, but before the liquid could touch her skin, a strong gust of wind swept through the space. Fast, forceful, unnatural. The acid missed. It hit the ground beside her, burning into the pavement. The bike didn't stop. It turned sharply and sped away into the dark. Kaya stood frozen. Her chest rose and fell in fast, shallow breaths. Her assistant clutched her arm, too shocked to speak. No one could explain what had just happened. That wind, it had come from nowhere. It had saved her. Across the street, a man stood in silence, hidden in the shadows, his expression calm, unreadable. Then he turned and walked away. Seong had seen enough. She was safe. That was all that mattered. Within seconds, security rushed out from the building, already alerted by the CCTV feed. Once they confirmed Kaya was unharmed, they escorted her to her car. Her PA immediately drove her to the nearest police station. Inside the station, Kaya sat quietly at first. But as the officers began their questions, fear started to crawl into her chest. This was the second attempt on her life. She should have been dead, but she wasn't. Something about it felt off. Too close, too calculated. And yet, she had survived. She gave her statement, but her voice was shaky. Her eyes didn't hide her panic. "I need answers," she said firmly, standing to her feet. "I want the person behind this caught. I don't care what it takes. Just do something." The officer looked at her calmly. "Ma'am," he said, "until we find who's responsible, you should consider hiring personal protection. A bodyguard. It's better to have someone watching you full time." Kaya didn't reply at first, but as she walked out of the station, the officer's words stayed with her. A name flashed in her mind. A face. Seong. There was something about him. Mysterious, calm, skilled. The way he moved, the way he watched, it felt like more than chance that he kept showing up at the right time. And now, for the first time, Kaya knew exactly what to do. She would find him, and this time, she wouldn't let him go again. Night had fallen hard over the city. Inside the grand study room of the Yun mansion, Madame Yun sat alone, her face pale with worry. She had just ended a call with Kaya, and her fingers wouldn't stop trembling. Another attack. Another close call. The weight of the past came crashing down on her. Unable to stay still, she sent for her son. Eun Tae Jin arrived not long after. He walked into the room with that same smugness he always carried. He was relaxed, confident, but cold. "You called me at this hour?" he asked, his tone careless. Madame Yun didn't waste time. Her eyes met his directly. "Did you have anything to do with the attack on Kaya?" Tae Jin stopped, his jaw tightening slightly. Then, slowly, a grin spread across his face. "So that's what this is about," he muttered. She didn't blink. He laughed bitterly, dropping into the chair across from her. "You still think you can read me so easily? You forget I'm your mother," she said quietly. His smile faded. "I know you too well, Tae Jin. I've been watching you. I've seen the resentment in your eyes every time Kaya's name is mentioned. So I'll ask you again. Did you send someone after her?" Tae Jin stood up, his voice sharp now. "You made this happen. You started treating her like she belonged in this family. like she deserved a seat at the table that was built for me. She earned her place, Madame Yun replied, rising to face him. He sneered. And I see your next move clearly. You handing the company to her, making me the villain. You've been cutting me out of deals, replacing me, slowly erasing me. You erased yourself, she snapped. I protected you for years. I gave up everything, even my conscience for you. He said nothing. Her voice cracked, but she pressed on. 20 years ago, you murdered Kaya's parents. You drove them to that cliff and left them in that car like they were nothing. You made it look like an accident. And I covered it up. I told the world it was a tragic loss. I destroyed evidence. I buried the truth. I did that to save you, to give you a chance to change. Tae Jin's silence was no longer denial. It was confirmation. Her hands trembled as she reached for her glass, but her voice remained strong. I thought you would become better. I thought the guilt would wake you up. But you've only grown worse than ever. I know about the money you've stolen, the shady partnerships, the lies. I know everything. He stepped closer, his expression unreadable. And now I know this. I won't let you destroy what your father and I built. I've taken steps to protect the company. If I must go to the police and confess what I did, I will, even if it ruins me. She turned her back to him, lifting her drink slowly to her lips. I won't watch you harm Kaya. Never again. Behind her, Tae Jin's gaze hardened. He had already done what he came for, and was satisfied he got the opportunity he was looking for. Earlier, while her back was turned, he had slipped something into her drink. Something slow, nearly invisible. She didn't suspect a thing. He could not risk her standing in his way. Tae Jin stood calmly by the door, adjusting his cufflinks as though nothing had happened. I'm leaving, he said, turning to glance at his mother, who now stood with her back to him, holding her glass. I hope you sleep well tonight, he added, his voice flat. She didn't respond. She simply raised the glass, took one last sip, and let the silence speak for her. As he walked out, Madame Yun's PA crossed paths with him in the hallway. Tae Jin gave her a small nod, just like always. He didn't rush. He moved like a man who had nothing to hide. The guard saw him too, composed, unbothered. Back in the lounge, Madame Yun stood for a moment, her fingers brushing the back of the chair. Her chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. Then, quietly, she turned and began walking to her room. Her staff saw her heading upstairs. One of them even asked, "Ma'am, should we bring you tea?" She waved them off. "No, I'm done for the night." She made it to her room without help, shut the door gently behind her, and let out a long, exhausted sigh. The weight of the night hung heavily on her shoulders. Guilt, rage, pain. It all twisted inside her like a knot. She sat on her bed. The air felt heavy. Time passed. It started slow. A dull ache in her stomach. Then came the heat, rising from her chest to her throat. Her hands trembled. She reached for her phone, confused, suddenly overwhelmed by a wave of dizziness. Her fingers struggled to move. Her body began to fail her. And in that moment, she knew. Her eyes widened in horror, her breathing shortened. She knew she had been poisoned. She knew who had done it. With fading strength, she picked up her phone, forcing her vision to focus. She typed, "Kaya, I'm sorry. Forgive me. I should have told you everything." She hit send. Then slowly she gave up the ghost. By morning, the house slowly came alive. Her personal assistant walked toward her room, as she always did, ready to help prepare Madame Yun for the day's meetings. A maid followed behind with fresh towels. The door was slightly ajar. The PA knocked gently. "Ma'am?" No response. She stepped in and froze. A gasp escaped her lips, then a scream. Madame Yun lay cold and still by the edge of her bed, her hand still loosely holding her phone. The staff rushed in. Panic swept through the mansion. They tried everything, but it was too late. Madame Yun was gone. News traveled fast. Kaya had barely made it through the morning when her phone rang. She answered quickly. It was her mother's PA. Her voice cracked with grief. "Kaya, Madame Yun is gone." Kaya stopped breathing. Her chest tightened. The room spun. She dropped the phone and stumbled backward. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. A scream built inside her, but it never left her mouth. It was all falling apart. The woman who protected her like a mother, gone. The second person she loved, taken from her. And this time, Kaya didn't just feel grief. Something inside Kaya crumbled. The world moved quietly around her, but all she could hear was silence. Everything suddenly felt empty. and colder than before.
Hello guys, thank you so much for watching this story to the end. Please do not forget to like, share, comment and subscribe for more amazing story. I still remain your favorite girl Onye all the way from Nigeria. See you all next week.